This is a countdown of the 50 most influential people in Anderson's 150-year history, as determined by the Herald Bulletin and a panel of local history experts. This is our list. The top 50 most influential people in Anderson's history. And now, numbers 30 through 21. Number 30. Leaders in government, business, and the civil rights movement, the Weatherly family.
It's one of the most, I would say probably as a family, probably one of the most influential families in this community.
My father, as most people know in this community, was one of the first black policemen in Anderson. But policing really wasn't his forte. His forte was really caring for the youth of Anderson during that time.
He spearheaded the Boys Club. He was an advocate of the Boys Club, in that he did a lot of work nationally and was able to bring a lot of that, the Boys Club, to our community, which we don't have one today. And after we lost Mr. Weatherly, it seemed like we kind of lost our Boys and Girls Club. But Mr. Weatherly was very active in bringing resources and financial resources in our community through those means of the Boys and Girls Club.
I think of all things, he would want to be remembered as being that helping hand to young men that didn't have fathers. I can recall many, many stories about the Anderson Indians travels, where he would go with the team. At that time, many of the places that the team went, they did not accept black boys into their restaurants or hotels. And so Dad was there as kind of a protector for those young men and a father figure.
Number 29. Author and historian James Warren Bailey.
Mr. Bailey goes back to when I was a kid. He was head of the Boy Scouts. He started the Boy Scouts, and of course I didn't have the 10 cents to join the Boy Scout, but Mr. Bailey was always around the community center there on 14th Street, and any young man that needed his help, needed his advice, he was there for him, and he just one wonderful, probably one of the finest men that's ever been in this city.
Number 28. Educator G.E. Everett.
G.E. Everett, I knew him as school superintendent at a time when special education did not exist. When it came as a mandatory law for special needs people to have a place in public education, Mr. Everett and I worked closely together for Madison County and Anderson particularly. And eventually one of the fine events in Anderson took place, which was the Hopewell Center for special needs, all services of all kinds. But it also broke the old rule that special needs people did not have a chance to go to public school. G.E. Everett was a pioneer in that area.
Number 27. Business leaders and philanthropists Charles and Hazel Dyckman.
There were two Dyckmans, John Dyckman, who is dead, and Charles Dyckman, who lives out in the north edge of town. And they were attorneys, and they worked for James Sansbury, with James Sansbury. And I worked at First Savings for 32 years, and they were our attorneys all 32 years. Excellent people, and I lived next door to Hazel and Charlie and Edgewood. And of course, they were very generous. Charlie's very generous with his earnings, and he's given a lot back to the community.
Number 26. Businessman and community advocate Joseph Hennings.
Joseph Henning was the person that when people came to Anderson for the first time, they were always directed, go see Joe Hennings. He'll tell you what this city's all about, and he'll give you a helping hand. And so he did. He was not native to the city, but when he arrived here, he immediately took root. He was a businessman. Primarily, he got into hotel management, and he was the manager of the Grand Hotel, which sat at the corner of 11th and Main Street. Adjacent to that, or connected to the Grand Hotel, was the Grand Opera House. And Joseph Henning is probably best remembered for a Made in Anderson exhibition in 1913. The city had come through a period of growth when the gas wells were pumping gas, but when the gas wells dried up, we went into decline. And Joseph Hennings single-handedly took it upon himself to promote Anderson and to bring growth back to the city. And he organized this exhibition, which ran for a week in June of 1913, where businesses that were in Anderson had their things they made on display inside of a tent that stretched from Jackson to John Street, curb to curb. That's one whale of a tent. And 50 businesses on one side of the street, 50 on the other, and people could come, and they did. Thousands came to see what Anderson had to offer, and many stayed. Many businesses came here as a result of the influence that Mr. Hennings had exercised in creating this exhibition. So the city had kind of a new birth, a reawakening, if you will, because of Joseph Hennings' efforts.
And now, a word from our sponsor. When we come back, numbers 25 through 21. The Top 50 Most Influential People in Anderson's History video series is sponsored by Luce Funeral Homes and Crematory. Family owned for 3 generations since 1979, Luce Funeral Homes and Crematory is everything you need in one location. Luce Funeral Homes and Crematory is located at 200 West 53rd Street in Anderson. Visit lucecares.com for more information. We're counting down the top 50 most influential people in Anderson's history. Here are numbers 25 through 21. Number 25. Mayor of Anderson from 1902 to 1905, John Faulkner.
John Faulkner was mayor of Anderson for one term, and the year that he was mayor was 1902 to 1905. In those days, the mayor served for 3 years. That was his term. But I would guess that if we could talk to John Faulkner today and say, Mr. Faulkner, what would you list in order of the things that you consider most important that you did for Anderson? Not at the top of the list would be mayor, because he did so many other things for our city. He was a real people person. There was lots of development that occurred in the city during his time here. He's not native to Anderson, but he certainly adopted the city when he came here. There was a lot of growth under John Faulkner. Very personable mayor. Everybody loved John Faulkner. And the thing that we at the Historical Society are most thankful for is that he co-authored a history of Madison County with Byron Dyson in 1897, and then in 1914 he wrote his own 2-volume history of Madison County. And he's got information in those histories that would have been lost otherwise.
Number 24. The first black family to settle in Anderson, the Monroe Williams family.
The Monroe Williams family, not very many people here in Anderson know about them. They were the first African-American family to move here in the 1800s, and they lived right off of Chase and 10th Street, just around the corner from where I live myself, in the historical district up there between 10th, 11th Street, 9th, 10th, 11th Street. And it's very interesting, a little bit of information that I did get on them. They were people that migrated here, they settled here, and I'm sure they have other relatives here. I haven't had time to kind of go into that and research and see. Some of them may not even know they're their relatives. But a lot of people don't realize that African Americans pretty much set up in a whole lot of places. May not have been very many of them, but they did. Yeah. They were very important because they were the first ones. And there was a gentleman and his daughter that settled along the Monrovian riverbank. His daughter married an Indian, and they were early settlers. But yes, a lot of people don't think about that, but yes, they were.
Number 23. Industrialist Ike Duffy.
Ike Duffy was a character who helped put Anderson on the map back in the 1940s and 50s. He bought the Hughes Curry Packing Company, and at the time professional basketball generally had industrial sponsors, so Hughes Curry became the sponsor of the Anderson Packers, who ended up playing in the NBA. They played at the old Anderson Wigwam. Later on, he bought the Central Indiana Railroad and actually turned it into a profitable operation just in between Anderson and Noblesville. He served as president of the Central Indiana Railway until his death from cancer in 1967.
Number 22. Leaders in the banking industry, the McCullough family.
The McCullough family, there's 3 generations, and we've put them all together because of their influence in the city. They were in banking. And for 3 generations, 60 years, the McCulloughs reigned, if you will, as the bankers in Anderson. Through their influence, so many projects were financed. They had a great love for this city, and I'd have to say that the descendants of the McCullough family, who I know personally, still have that great love for the city of Anderson, although they don't reside here any longer. But there were 3 of them, 3 generations of McCulloughs. Citizens Bank is the bank that they were closely associated with, being president of the bank. But they had connections all over the state and all over the country that brought business to Anderson through their banking interests. And so Anderson owes them a great deal of thanks for all the influence that the McCullough family had in the growth of Anderson.
Number 21. Businessman and pioneer, Zebedee Christian.
Zebedee Christian Sr., I first knew when I first came to Anderson. He was working at my uncle's floor covering store. He was a very personable, very gracious man. Soon after that, he left my uncle's store and founded his own floor covering store. He was also a great golfer, but being an African American at the time, Grandview did not accept black golfers, so he had to go clear to Muncie to play golf. Eventually, of course, Grandview opened to all races. He ended up winning the city tournament. Eventually, a tournament was named in his honor. He was very education-minded, very concerned about the community, and he was a community leader. He was appointed to the school board. At that time, school board members were appointed by the mayor, and he was the first African American to serve on the Anderson School Board. He had 3 children, Zebedee Jr., Mary Porter, and Clarice Blaylock. Mary, I believe, still lives in Anderson. He is buried in East Maplewood Cemetery.
Zebedee Christian. Zeb and I played a lot of golf together. And of course, I met Zeb when he first moved to Anderson, and one of the fine religious individuals, a tremendous, outstanding man, and a great golfer. Even at an elderly age, he was still hitting the ball down the middle, not too long, but down the middle. And he was the only Afro-American to ever win the Madison County Golf Championship. So he is a great golfer, a great person.
That's it for numbers 30 through 21 of the top 50 most influential people in Anderson's history. Visit heraldbulletin.com to see the rest of our list.